An entire battalion marched into smoke and was never seen again. The First World War had already turned northern France into a wasteland of mud and shattered trees when the 1st/5th Battalion of the Norfolk Regiment advanced near Suvla Bay in August 1915. Their orders were clear: push through the Ottoman defenses, secure the ridgeline, and break the stalemate. Nearly 250 men marched in neat lines, their boots swallowed by mire, rifles gleaming faintly under a dim sun. Then came the fog. Witnesses behind the lines described it as unnatural. Low-lying clouds that rolled down the slope, dense and luminous as if lit from within. The battalion entered the haze in full formation. Drums quieted, voices hushed, boots muffled. Their officers led confidently, unaware that history was swallowing them whole. Minutes passed, then hours. The fog did not disperse. Soldiers waiting behind grew restless, listening for gunfire that never came. When the mist finally lifted, the ridge stood bare. No battle cries, no bodies, no broken weapons. Just churned mud where hundreds had marched. The Norfolk Battalion had vanished as though the earth had opened and consumed them. War was brutal, but war left traces. Here, there were none.
What was that? Where did they go?
Other regiments swore they saw the Norfolk swallowed by the fog. Men described the mist as shimmering like glass, with edges too sharp for natural weather. One officer claimed he saw the battalion walking deeper into the whiteness until their outlines turned translucent. Then nothing. Rumors spread quickly through the trenches. Some whispered gas attack, others divine punishment. Yet gas left corpses, burns, twisted bodies, and none were found. Instead, the valley seemed untouched, eerily silent, as if it had rejected the violence of war itself. The Turkish defenders reported no clash with such a battalion. No prisoners, no burials. They insisted they had not even seen the Norfolks. For both sides, it was as though men had stepped into another world. Letters home avoided the truth, claiming heavy casualties, honorable deaths. But those who were there kept the tale alive, the fog that ate an army. The more they told it, the more the details shifted. Some swore the mist hummed, others that it bent light until rifles looked like spears of fire. What was constant? Once the Norfolks entered, they never returned. War demands records, and generals needed answers. Investigators scoured the ridge for weeks. Shovels dug shallow trenches, expecting to find mass graves. Dogs sniffed for corpses. Nothing surfaced. Not a helmet, not a button, not a scrap of cloth. Families were told their sons had died with honor. Official dispatches labeled the event a heavy loss in combat. Yet whispers grew among the soldiers because combat leaves fragments, and here the field was clean. Too clean. Villagers nearby claimed the ridge was cursed. Shepherds refused to graze their flocks there. They spoke of lights at night, pale columns rising skyward, and the faint echo of marching boots when the valley stood empty. Even the Ottomans were unsettled. Turkish patrols avoided the spot, calling it the silent place. They feared to tread where no corpses proved death. The war moved on, the battlefield scarred, healed, scarred again. But the place where the Norfolks vanished became a quiet scar of another kind. one not of mud and steel, but of absence. When the war machine demands answers, it prints questions on paper and calls them forms. Officers convened inquiries, clerks sharpened pencils. The ridge received a new name in the files. Area of interest. Statements from those who had watched, the ones with binoculars and steady hands, were copied, stamped, and filed. The copies bled the terror out of the words. A luminous fog, no engagement observed. Unit proceeded and did not return. One memorandum tried to domesticate the impossible. Losses sustained during advance under adverse atmospheric conditions. Another, more daring, wondered if the men had blundered into a Turkish pocket and been taken prisoner en masse without a shot. But no Turkish list bore their names. No Red Crescent reports, no barter of prisoners. Some proposed gas, though no masks were found discarded. No burns on the few scraps of cloth recovered from the slope. Others suggested shelling had pulverized the battalion, yet the ground showed no fresh craters, and the fog had been silent. A colonel wrote a sentence with too much ink on the nib. Weather does not take men away. Then crossed it out. Time, which eats armies more reliably than any cannon, moved on. New offensives, new maps, new ridges with new names. But the ledger line for the Norfolks did not balance. It remained an arithmetic of absence, numbers without remains, orders without outcomes. In private, some officers admitted what the forms could not. The story made their teeth ache. It did not break rules, it bent them until they sang. And in the barracks at night, men who had not been there borrowed the tale and wore it like a talisman. Because if fog could swallow a battalion whole, perhaps there were places in the world where death forgot to look. Years later, when battlefields were plowed into memory and memorials, a patrol found remains in a shallow depression beyond the ridge. Sun and rain had worried the bones into a hushed jumble. Buttons, boots, a buckle with the crowned cipher of the king. The papers called it closure. Families were offered a word to hold, recovered. But even closure argued with itself. Some insignia matched the missing battalion, some did not. A skull bore a Turkish coin clenched in the jaw, as if placed there, or as if the dead had bitten down on currency instead of a prayer. The medical officer wrote carefully, "Identity uncertain." Archivists catalogued the grave goods as if inventory could quiet an old wind. One enamel mug, one pocket Bible swollen with damp. One watch stopped at 2:13, a whistle whose pea had dissolved. The whistle was the worst. It suggested an order had been given that the air decided not to carry. Villagers returned to their fields and found bones again, scattered like pale punctuation. Each new discovery changed the sentence, but never the meaning. The fog did not return to explain itself. The ridge was mended with fences and thistles. At an exhumation, a chaplain read from the Psalms about the Valley of the Shadow. The wind misheard and took only shadow. A mother kept a photograph on a mantle for 50 years and spoke to it as if the man behind the glass were merely late. "You are late," she would say, dusting the frame. "But I have set a place for you anyway." Numbers were reconciled on paper. In hearts, never. Explanations flourished like weeds in ruins. Meteorologists invoked a ground-hugging stratus that refracted light until distance misbehaved. The men had wandered off course and been cut down elsewhere, but elsewhere never yielded their bodies. Engineers proposed a marsh masked by mist, the battalion swallowed by mud. Yet the ridge was chalk and rock, hard-boned country that does not eat men. Skeptics preferred the ordinary horror of the fog cloaked in ambush, and the Turks killed quickly, dragged the fallen into ravines. Why then, no firing heard by observers, no telltale buzz of flies over the days that followed? And why did Turkish records stay silent, as if a clerk had put his finger on the page and refused to write? Others went stranger. Ball lightning, some said, a rare atmospheric engine that blinds, burns, and bewilders. A physicist with a poet's impatience suggested a standing vortex, a weather knot tied to the ground. A priest whispered that not all clouds are sky, that some are doors. The tale fattened on retellings. In pubs, the fog hummed. In diaries, it rang like wire. In a nurse's letter home, it smelled faintly of camphor and something sweet, like a sick room where the window refuses to open. Each detail was a candle, small, wavering, necessary. In the end, the theories did what theories do. They arranged the furniture of the inexplicable so that the living could walk through the room without bruising their shins. The fog remained, a pale animal sleeping on a ridge in memory. If you asked for proof, it opened one eye. If you asked for truth, it closed both. On certain evenings, the valley breathes out and the air lies white along the grass. Shepherds cut a longer path. Hikers take photographs and later erase them, embarrassed by how ordinary the cloud appears when captured. The ground remembers without telling. Roots tangle a little tighter where boots once ended at the edge of a light that did not move. A museum holds a glass case with letters from the men. Mud-scented paper, ink that looks like it still wants to run. Visitors lean close to read a sketch of a ridge and a rectangle labeled cloud. The label beneath the glass is polite, personal effects circa. 1915, the glass is not polite. It keeps everything inside. At night, the staff lock the doors and the case fogs with its own small weather. The security camera sees nothing but a white bloom fading when the lights come up. The custodian, who is paid to be practical, brings a cloth the next morning and polishes the idea of a battalion until he can see his face in it. He does not look long. If you listen to guides on the ridge, they will give you the safe story, confusion, terrain, the well-known chaos of war. If you listen to the wind, it will give you footsteps. They are soft, as if wrapped in felt, and they go on past where the path ends. We are a species that writes ledgers to keep from falling into clouds. Sometimes the cloud does not care. The Norfolks marched into something that borrowed the shape of weather. Whether it was door or trap or mercy disguised, no report can say. What reports cannot hold, stories carry. So we carry them into the fog and beyond it.